The fighting stopped. The echoes of gunfire and explosions that once filled the air gradually faded into an eerie silence. The sounds of war faded away, leaving behind a haunting quietness that settled over the city like a heavy fog. From all the damage, a new group took over, the Taliban. They moved in swiftly, filling the void left by the retreating forces. They took control of Afghanistan, and everyone was scared. Fear became a constant companion for the people, lurking in every shadow. All the bright colors and happy sounds of kids playing were gone. The laughter of children was replaced by an unsettling stillness. Everything felt dull and sad. The vibrant life that once characterized the streets was now a distant memory. Women who used to be important parts of our communities were hidden away. Their presence was reduced to mere shadows. They had to cover their faces and couldn't speak up. Their voices, once strong and influential, were silenced. Girls weren't allowed to go to school. The doors to education were slammed shut, and their dreams were put on hold. A whole generation couldn't learn and grow. The future of the nation was being stifled, one child at a time. The Taliban's rules were very strict, and they punished people harshly. Their justice was swift and unforgiving. They even killed people in public to scare everyone else. Everyone was nervous. The fear of punishment kept people in line. People whispered instead of talking. Conversations were held in hushed tones, always wary of being overheard. No one could trust anyone. Suspicion and paranoia spread like wildfire, tearing apart the fabric of the community. The rest of the world just watched as we suffered. Our cries for help seemed to fall on deaf ears. We wanted peace so badly. We longed for the days when life was normal, when we could live without fear. We wanted the fighting to stop. We yearned for a time when our children could play freely and our families could thrive. But the Taliban's peace meant we had to give up our freedom, our voices, everything that made us who we are. Years went by, hope started to disappear. The weight of oppression grew heavier with each passing day. We felt like ghosts in our own country. Our spirits were crushed, and our identities were fading. We were controlled by fear. It dictated our every move, our every thought. The world outside felt very far away. It was so unfair. We were isolated, cut off from the rest of humanity. We were tired of war. The endless cycle of violence had drained us of our strength and hope. We wanted to rebuild our lives. We yearned for a chance to start anew, to create a future for ourselves and our children. But the Taliban made things worse. Their oppressive rule stifled any attempts at progress. We were trapped and no one seemed to hear us. Our pleas for help echoed into the void, unanswered and ignored. Then, everything changed. The world as we knew it was turned upside down. September 11, 2001, a day no one will forget, the day that marked a turning point in history. The Twin Towers in America fell down, crumbling into dust and debris. The world watched in horror, the whole world was shocked and sad. America wanted revenge. The grief was palpable and the desire for justice was strong. Everyone looked at Afghanistan, where Osama bin Laden and his Al-Qaeda group were hiding. The hunt for the perpetrators began. The Taliban refused to give him up. So, America attacked Afghanistan. The drums of war began to beat louder. They called it Operation Enduring Freedom. For us, it was just another part of a long, painful war. A war that brought more suffering. American planes filled the sky. Kabul, our capital city, was bombed. The destruction was immense. The Taliban, already weak, were quickly defeated. Their strongholds fell one by one. When the Taliban lost, we started to feel a little hopeful. Things felt a little less strict. A glimmer of hope began to shine. We started to dream of a better future, a future without fear. Conversations about rebuilding and renewal filled our homes. For the first time in a long time, girls went to school again. Education became a beacon of hope. Women took off the coverings from their faces. They smiled in public, participating in community events. Other countries promised to help us rebuild. The world extended a hand, and we began to rebuild our shattered nation. At first things seemed good, but then they got bad again. Lots of money came to Afghanistan, but it was wasted or stolen. Our government was weak and couldn't control the whole country. Old warlords came back and fought for power. The Taliban weren't really gone. They hid in the mountains and planned their return. The Americans were busy looking for Al-Qaeda and didn't see how unhappy people were becoming. The Americans did things that made people angry: night raids, accidental bombings that killed civilians. We were stuck in the middle of someone else's war. The Taliban, who we used to hate, started to say they were on our side. that they were against the foreigners. The dream of a new Afghanistan started to fade. The war went on and on, the fighting didn't stop. The problems from the beginning became big problems later. So many people died in the war. Kids only knew fighting. So many Afghan people were killed, and even more were hurt, or lost arms and legs, or were very sad inside. But the numbers don't tell the whole story. Every number is a broken life, a sad family, a community torn apart. The war was everywhere. Schools, hospitals, markets, all dangerous. We were always afraid. Some people escaped to other countries. The people who stayed had a hard time. There wasn't enough food. Hospitals couldn't help everyone. So many children became orphans. They had to live on the streets. Our country was falling apart. The war destroyed us. The world forgot about us. The promises of help felt empty. We had to rebuild our lives on our own, always remembering the people we lost and always afraid of what might happen next. As the years went by, we felt like the Taliban would come back, and they did. Their return was not sudden but a gradual process that many of us feared and anticipated. They used the problems in our government, the anger against the foreigners, and how tired everyone was of war. The corruption and inefficiency of the government only fueled their cause. They slowly started to control more and more of our country. Village by village, district by district, their influence spread like wildfire. In the countryside, the Taliban became stronger. Their presence was felt in every corner, and their power grew with each passing day. They said they would bring peace, even though it was a harsh kind of peace. Their version of peace meant strict rules and severe punishments. Regular people, farmers, teachers, shopkeepers had to choose between the bad guys they knew and the bad guys they didn't. It was a choice between a rock and a hard place. The Taliban told everyone they were good and that they would get rid of the foreigners. They promised a return to traditional values and a sense of order. Many people believed them, especially poor people in the countryside, because the government didn't help them. The promises of the Taliban seemed like a beacon of hope in their desperate lives. We started to get scared again. The fear of the unknown and the memories of past violence haunted us. People whispered about who talked to foreigners, who disobeyed the Taliban. The fighting started again. Trust was shattered and suspicion was everywhere. We watched sadly as everything good that happened disappeared. The progress we had made seemed to vanish overnight. We felt betrayed by our leaders, by other countries, by the promise of peace. The hope we once had was replaced by a deep sense of loss and betrayal. In 2021, everything changed again. The Americans said they were leaving after 20 years of war, but they left very quickly, and it was a mess. We will never forget the pictures from the Kabul airport. The scared crowds, people trying to hold on to planes, the fear in people's eyes. The Taliban took over the country very fast. Cities fell one after another. Kabul, our capital, was taken without a fight. Our government disappeared. Families were split up. Lives were ruined. Dreams were broken. The world watched as our country fell apart again. It was very sad that America left so quickly. All the promises, all the money, all the fighting. What was it for? We were alone again. After the Americans left, no one knew what would happen. The Taliban took control and made everyone follow their strict rules. We still remembered the war, and many people were sad and hurt. A whole generation only knew fighting. Their childhoods were gone and they didn't know what the future would bring. We all had invisible wounds that would take a long time to heal. But even though things were bad, there was still some hope. People were strong. Even when things were hard, people were brave. Teachers secretly taught girls. Doctors and nurses worked hard in hospitals that didn't have much. Journalists told the truth even though it was dangerous. These were the real heroes of Afghanistan. Regular people who never gave up hope. Today we don't know what will happen in Afghanistan. The Taliban are in control. Other countries don't want to help us anymore. But even in dark times, we still have hope. The Afghan people are strong. We have survived very hard times. We know what it's like to be sad and what it's like to have hope. Rebuilding our country will be hard. It will take a long time to forget the war. But we want to make our country better. We want our children to grow up without fear, to go to school, to treat women fairly, and to live in peace. It will be difficult, but we will not give up hope. We will keep working for a better future, a future that honors everyone who suffered. Even when things are very bad, we believe that good things will happen someday.